Monday night's brutal terrorist attack in Manchester, England has, of course, reawakened our own concerns about security here in the U.S. And once again, we're asking how safe we are. We go to arenas, we go to stadiums, baseball stadiums, you name it, on a daily basis. We are joined now by Bernard Zapor. He is a retired 25-year veteran of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms. He is now a corporate security executive in Arizona. And Bernard, you're very familiar with racist and extremist groups here in the U.S. How prominent are these groups, and how much of a threat, in your opinion, do you believe they pose?
Well, I feel it's the responsibility of everybody involved in public safety and citizens in all nations to assume this threat is going to happen. Obviously, this is a group of sociopaths that would target and murder little girls at a concert.
Yeah, and that's the question that we've been asking all night. I mean, you think that, you know, we know that airplanes have been hit, we know that nightclubs have been hit. I can't really think back, and maybe you can, Bernard, I can't really think back where there was a terrorist thing, except for maybe the school in Russia many years ago, where the actual target, they know, were young children. Can you?
Well, it goes back to early U.S. Industrialized history in the early 1900s, where they had somebody who was demented that was responsible for building a schoolhouse. In the process of building a schoolhouse, he lined the walls with dynamite and essentially immolated the entire school with children in it in the early 1900s here in the U.S. But the whole issue is that this is something that should be industrialized. The response and the assumption that these type of attacks are going to happen, and they're going to continue to happen, much like when the U.S. was first dealing with fire safety. People died when buildings were higher than 2 stories. Now with crowds and venues that attract volumes of people, we have to assume that everything is a vulnerability.
I'm kind of go back to the whole industrialization of this, Bernard. I mean, you're saying that we need to do what exactly to help fight this threat?
Well, you think in terms of how many people died in the development of the nation and Europe when buildings got larger and more complex, before you had regulatory responsibility for fire suppression and things like that. If we look in terms of our venues, our workplaces, our schools, where you have the vulnerability of a mass shooting event or a criminal bombing event, if certain safeguards could go into place, just out of routine business, there's the potential of saving future victims. Not necessarily in a case such as this, but having the assumption that these kind of things are going to happen.
So let's have the assumption these things are going to happen. How do we safeguard these buildings? I mean, you've seen the security, you've seen the measures we've taken. What's your indication that a building is safe, or that a venue is safe, or that, you know, we can help lower the risk of terrorism?
Well, if you have large concentrations of people, right now, obviously the United States and the developed world is fighting an ideology that mutates the largest religion on the planet, where these atrocities are committed in the name of God. And so the motive is endless. And so one can assume that in large gatherings of people, uncontrolled areas, somebody could self-deploy an improvised explosive device and conduct exactly what happened in the United Kingdom now.
Interesting stuff. Bernard Zapor, thank you.